Nepgya!
Nepgya, also known as, well, Nepgya, has multiple, seemingly quite random appearances throughout the Neptunia series, but Nepgya herself is a very strange character. I mean, not to mention she's an entity unlike any other thing we've seen throughout the series. So, let's see what she's all about. So Nepgya is actually a fairly old character. Her first appearance dates back to the Hyperdimension Neptunium Mark II art book, so she was there, I mean, in the second year of the franchise's existence. So yeah, she's pretty old. Though her more notable appearances are, when she's either more significant or is playable, being that her only main series appearance within a game, at least, has been in V2 as a DLC playable character. In spin offs, she has had one appearance being in Mega Tag Mention as, once again, a DLC character. Both times she doesn't really have an effect on the plot, but that's when we get to her most prominent appearance being in the Paper Dimension 4 panel, in which, while she's not nearly the focus of the entire thing, she is still a rather prominent character and got a decent amount of time specifically about her, and in which it sort of explained how she originates and what exactly she is, and it also actually explains her appearances in games as a playable character. So there's very clearly just one Nepgya, which is fascinating. Every other character has either only a single appearance in a single title, or has been reoccurring, in which there's plenty of different versions. It could be said that even every single spin-off has its own unique version of each character that's featured in it. The only possibility that there's multiple Nepgyas is that perhaps the one playable in V2 and the one playable in Tag Mention are two separate ones. However, there's really no way to know which one is the same one from the paper dimension, so we don't really know. Possibly it's three completely separate ones, though I kind of doubt that considering she's an anomaly. She's not supposed to exist in any. So I'd say there's a 90% chance that she is just a single being and is actually able to travel universes, which is a unique ability that not many possess. Really, the only character that can reliably do it, like on intentionally at least, is Crowar, and by extension Ultra Dimension Neptune, due to the fact that she enslaved Crowar to do that for her. Next, her physical capabilities, which are very strange to judge because the only time we really see her abilities is when we get to play as her in V2 and Mega Tag Mention, in which she's basically just a copy of Nepgear, but without the ability to transform, which is actually not true in sort of lore wise. She does have an HTD form. We'll get to that. As for why this is, it was probably just a game design decision to make her, less powerful than Nepgear, because I don't think you're supposed to be having your Nepgya as your head. She's kind of a joke character, let's be real. But it would be entertaining to see her HDD form in play, because, yeah, we never got to see that actually used at all, aside from when she first transformed, so. There are two distinct halves to Nepgear's life. One is from her conception in the Mark II art book, all the way to a certain point in Paper Dimension, and the second goes from there to present. The first half, she's a spirit type entity that has been possessing Nepgear for an unknown period of time, possibly even Nepgear's entire life up to this point. Her only real action was making Nepgear do that iconic face, and nothing really happened. They weren't even aware that Nepgya was a sentient entity that was possessing Nepgear. They simply thought Nepgear had a faulty face or something. However, we eventually get to see things from Nepgya's perspective, who eventually decides to leave Nepgear and do something else with her life. She leaves and realizes that she won't be able to exist for too long as a spirit without a body. However, she's unsure of what to do, but everything changes when Neptune suddenly addresses her as Nepgear. The realization then occurs that Nepgya has become corporeal to an extent. How this happened is unknown, possibly due to her existing as a part of Nepgear for so long, as it is apparent that this form of her still has the appearance of Nepgear, evident by the fact that Neptune addressed her as Nepgear. I mean, it is plain visible, too. Nepgya explains her situation, and the entire gang is not really sure what to do. However, the conclusion is reached that Nepgya actually ends up becoming a being. She suddenly gets her own body, and this is where her HDD form comes into play, as she, for some reason, suddenly gains the ability to transform. She becomes a goddess, and while her HD form is the same as Purple Sister, just with the iconic expression, something is clearly up, as she's able to pull shares from seemingly nowhere. Nobody really looks into it, and Nepgya decides to travel and, live her own life. Maybe she'll come back and see them at some point, though, but she wants to do things first. And this is seemingly how she ends up in V2 and Blanc vs. Zombies. She ends up traveling through the different dimensions, and this is where things are strange, because yeah, she's able to do it, but we have no idea how she's capable of such a feat. And I'll get to that in a second. First, we need to discuss another ability of hers. See, fourth wall breaking in Neptunia is clearly a ability that only certain characters are capable of doing. Simply having the knowledge of the true nature of their existence does not give the character the ability to comprehend that and break the fourth wall. In fact, characters without that, should they learn of this, they very clearly kind of just forget about it, and they forget anything they said associated with it a few moments later. However, certain characters are constantly aware of their existence and are clearly show the ability to allow other characters to temporarily know this, as, say, Neptune makes a joke that breaks the fourth wall, and suddenly everyone else is able to either join in on it or, get mad at it and tell her to stop, or just get mad that everyone's breaking the fourth wall. However, just a few moments later, they all seemingly just forget this, which is quite telling, as it seems that, the ability to break the fourth wall is able to be spread. It's an ability that can temporarily affect other people as well as just allow you to do that. The characters that can do it are very limited. Even characters that know of other universes existing are still not aware that it's all a game or whatever. The only characters that are constantly having this awareness and ability, as I explained, are the various variations of Neptune. I'm pretty sure. I don't think anyone else has that, but I might be wrong there. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Then we get to Nepgya, who has something very special. She seems to have this fourth wall breaking ability, but much stronger. She has a much greater connection to our world than any of the Neptunes. This connection only occurs once, and it is when she literally prompts the readers of Paper Dimension to decide her fate. And, of course, everyone else is aware that that's going on, which seems to just be the same effect happening again, though it is of note that they do remember it afterwards, so it's quite possible that this advanced ability has a bit of a different effect, so that anyone who witnesses it being used still is able to keep their memories of the situation, regardless of what their fourth wall breaking abilities are, evident by the fact that Nepgear and Histoire still remember that event. Now, this could be the explanation we're looking for behind her ability to travel between universes, as she not only is aware of the true nature of the entire Neptunia series' existence, but is able to actually interact with those outside of it, and thus she could literally write herself into these games as DLC, which kind of paints her in a different picture. See, Nepgya might want to be one of the most powerful characters in the Neptunia franchise. Besides just having the powers of Nepgear, probably the strongest of the CPU candidates, she has the ability to literally interact with us outside of the franchise in the real world and put herself into other games and affect herself, turning herself from a shapeless spirit into a body. And I guess we do need to consent to it, but still, it's kind of ridiculous. Every other character, even if they know of the true nature of their existence, are still subject to our will. They can't prompt us to do things. They can't actually think to ask us, like, hey, can you do this for us? Nepgya is not God. She doesn't have an absolute control over everything in the Neptunia multiverse, but she actually has a direct connection with what we could call God, being ourselves, and actually have herself put into whatever she wants. She can have herself changed. She could probably have other stuff changed too. She doesn't need physical power. She could just possibly request something, and if we want, we could approve it. The fans could vote for yes, and just like that, she could have her enemy just, explode or whatever. So, and we have seen her affect other things. Say, the Nepgeardom. It's a creation of Nepgear, and yeah, I mean, it's a giant robot, but one thing that is always true with it, no matter what anyone does, is that it always has the Nepgya face on it. Nepgear is seemingly always unexpecting of this, and it seems to just be at complete random. Nepgya could very well just be kind of having this written in to be a thing. The developers of the game decided it would be funny to do that. Possibly Nepgya could have been responsible. She could have actually said, "Hey, it'd be funny to prank Nepgear. Is that if her robot has this face or whatever?" So, yeah, we have seen her affect things like that. So, yeah, Nepgya is probably the closest character to omnipotent that we have in the series. The fact that she's able to request an omnipotent entity, being, the creators of the series, to actually do things for her. Which is kind of ridiculous for a joke character, I will say. I mean, I got nothing else to say. It's just perfect. I mean, Nepgya is the closest thing we have to an absolute god in this. Fucking Nepgya. That's all I have to say. That's it. We're calling it quits. Fuck the rest of the video. Look over there. There's the door. Get the fuck out. I'm done. Goodbye.